Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be talking about how Algorand could be at the center of global payments around the world. So, in a recent tweet I came across provided by Deutsche Bank, the tweet detailed how SWIFT is set to completely migrate their payment infrastructure to the ISO 20022 standard in November. So the ISO 20022 standard is a new approach surrounding the sending of funds, which is primarily centered around improvements to the seamlessness and the timeliness surrounding the sending of funds around the world or within an economy. So at the moment, there's a number of networks which actively comply with the ISO 20022 standard, where such networks include the likes of the XRP Ledger, the Stellar Network, XDC and Algorand. So with SWIFT actively transitioning their payment infrastructure to the ISO 20022 standard, this will see the likes of SWIFT actively using the mentioned networks, including the likes of Algorand. So the following article goes into further detail in regards to how the ISO 20022 standard is set to impact the wider European marketplace and further afield. So SWIFT isn't the only payment infrastructure which is set to transition to the new standard, where the European system and the EBA clearing system is also set to implement the ISO 20022 standard again in November of 2022. So the likes of the European market and SWIFT will take on the benefits surrounding the likes of the Algorand network to send funds and electronic datasets around the world and within a nation, where Algorand actively complies to the ISO standard, most notably due to the innate qualities attached to Algorand, especially the high finality rates, the cost effectiveness and the scalability offered by the Algorand network, where the Algorand network can openly validate thousands of transactions per second, and finality rates surrounding these transactions can be reached in a mere seconds, typically 5 seconds, and these key factors are compounded with the extremely low transaction fees attached to the usage of the Algorand network, where the sending of funds through Algorand and other datasets only amount to $0.001 per transaction. So with the likes of the European system and SWIFT directly looking to the likes of Algorand to power their payment infrastructure in the near future, this could be quite beneficial and bullish for the overarching Algorand network, as the active usage of Algorand to send such datasets will mean that the Algorand network will increase in utility, and as a result the demand for ALGO will increase to actively validate such transactions. And this could be quite beneficial for the overarching Algorand network and for ALGO token holders, as the active utility of Algorand will see increases in the demand for ALGO, and as a result the price of ALGO will see invariable increases. So as well as SWIFT and the European system actively seeking to implement the ISO 20022 standard into their frameworks, the Bank of England is also set to transition to this new standard in April 2023, where the Bank of England is set to overhaul its current CHAP system to the ISO standard, where at the moment the Bank of England utilises the CHAP system to enable the verification of transactions within the UK as a whole. However, such payment infrastructure comes with a number of limitations, especially the lack of scalability and the low finality rates surrounding this legacy payment infrastructure. So the active usage of the ISO system could be a means of overcoming these limitations. So this is a diagrammatic form of how the SWIFT system has an overarching footprint across the world, and how the ISO standard would impact SWIFT's use cases and developments, especially surrounding the sending of funds cross borders to senders and receivers. So with the ISO standard looking to be rolled out across the Western world over the next few months or so, the ISO standard has actually been implemented into a number of global payment systems, most notably the likes of Switzerland and the Philippines. And this is coupled with the Central Bank of Azerbaijan seeking to actively transition to the ISO 20022 standard, which will power their interbank payment system, where again the central bank has turned to the ISO standard to greatly improve the efficiency and the timeliness surrounding the sending of funds within the wider Azerbaijan economy. So with the likes of the Central Bank of Azerbaijan, the Philippines and Switzerland already actively using ISO compliant networks, the Algorand network may seemingly be used by such bodies as we speak. So as well as central banks eyeing the ISO standard, retail banks are also set to switch to the ISO standard, where one bank includes Deutsche Bank, where the private bank is set to transition their core banking system to the ISO standard by January 2023. So with news surrounding the active usage of the ISO standard by a number of central banks and retail banks around the world, this will be another use case surrounding the Algorand network, and this may spur on further increases in the price of Algorand and may be quite significant for the overarching Algorand network when the SWIFT system actively implements the ISO standard into their frameworks in November. So Algorand could become a key component of global financial activities and cross-border payments when SWIFT take on the Algorand network to execute transactions around the world. As well as the likes of the Euro system and SWIFT actively seeking to implement the ISO standard, the Federal Reserve is also set to implement the ISO standard into their RTGS system, also known as Fedwire, where the Federal Reserve will take on the benefits surrounding the ISO system in improving the seamlessness surrounding the sending of funds and datasets between the varying branches of the Federal Reserve. So again, this could be another driving factor which spurs on sizable increases in the utility of Algorand and increases in the demand for ALGO over time. So with the likes of Algorand, XRP, XLM, XDC and IOTA all being readily compliant networks that adheres to the ISO standard, the mentioned cryptos could be at the centre of cross-border payments around the world, and the likes of Algorand may be one of few cryptos which may survive the bear market and potentially flourish. What's your thoughts on Algorand? Are you bullish on SWIFT implementing the ISO standard? Let us know your views in the comments below. Thank you for watching Crypto Clan. Don't forget to like, subscribe and click on the notification bell. Let us know your views in the comments below. Thank you for watching and we'll see you in the next video.